Hey, it's Meg
and Daisy,
and welcome to the Crafternoon podcast,
a podcast about journaling, creativity, and everything in between.
Welcome to another Creative Chats episode on the Crafternoon podcast. This week's guest is Kia Marie Hunt, also known as Kia Creates. Kia is an author, illustrator, and lifelong journaling enthusiast. Daisy and I had an absolutely wonderful chat with Kia about her creative businesses, her journals, what inspires her, her creative process, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. So let's dive straight in. So hey Kia, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So for people who don't know who you are, could you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm Kia Creates. All of my work kind of encompasses my love for journaling. That's where it all started. So I'm a journal addict and I have an Etsy shop where I sell like stickers and journaling supplies. I have a Patreon where I make journal kits for my patrons each month, and then all of my kind of other work is like surrounded around that. So I'm just journal obsessed every day.
So are you like a full-time creative then?
Yeah, so I'd say I'm full-time creative, but like a chunk of it still is like my publishing work. So I write and illustrate books. So my Etsy and Patreon and those kind of things, they're not completely full-time yet, but it's sort of going that way, which is nice.
Oh, that's cool. So tell us a bit about the publishing then, because Daisy and I were looking at your books that you've published and we were so excited to learn more about that.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited. The only thing is, if you start me talking on those, I could talk about them forever.
Oh no,
they're like my children. Like the books that have just come out, I've been working on the past 9 months, so they are like my babies. They're puzzle books for kids over 7, but they're like the puzzle books that I dreamed of when I was a kid. Basically, they have a story running all the way throughout. So it's like a whole adventure that you go on, and you do the puzzles to collect clues and then use the clues to crack a code at the end. So it's like this whole adventure. So I've had my head in that for 9 months, and I'm so excited that they're like out there now.
Oh wow. So how did you get into that then? Have you always been in the publishing industry?
Well, when I graduated uni, I did a 1-month internship at HarperCollins, and then I kind of went on to other stuff. I did freelance things in like marketing, like a lot of social media, but I always kept in touch with HarperCollins, and I always did some like freelance bits for them here and there. And then I got really into this marketing and suddenly had a change of heart and was like, why did I leave publishing behind? I like that so much. So I kind of got in contact with the people that I was with there, and they saw all of the journaling work that I've been doing, which is cool because that kind of that's what made them ask me about these books they had coming up, where they had an idea for like activity journals for kids. And because they'd been in contact with me for a while and they'd seen that I've done journaling, they asked if I wanted to write the books. And then I had a kind of almost fake it till you make it moment where I was on the phone with them. I was like, oh yeah, I'm actually an illustrator as well, which is true because like I draw, but like you have to sort of just say it like it's fact. And then as soon as I said like I'm an illustrator, like the words came out of my mouth, they were like, okay. And then it was true. And then I got to author and illustrate them, and it was like, whoa, I just made that happen. So it came about in a really weird way, but now since then, that series, like we've worked together again on this one, so it's actually my job now, which is a bit wild.
So were you journaling the whole time you were like going through uni and stuff? Was that like a relatively new thing?
So well, when people have asked me before, like when did you start journaling, I always say, oh, it was like second year of uni. I went on my year abroad and I started journaling to like capture memories like that, that's where I felt like it started. But then my memory's terrible. Recently I've like gone home and like in my childhood bedroom, like all the boxes are like dusty, and you go and have a look at what you had. I knew I kept diaries, but like I actually was a like journaling obsessed child and didn't even remember it. Like I've got handmade journals where like I've been to a workshop and like made the paper and like wrote down like, oh, this is my first handmade journal, and that was when I was like 9 or something. So I actually have been doing it for ages. I just forgot and then kind of made my way back to it in uni, so it's quite nice.
Oh, that's so lovely. I feel like I've got boxes of stuff like that somewhere as well. It's funny though, looking back on the younger ones and thinking like that was where it started, and then you
Yeah.
see them now and you're like, oh, I've got a whole little like timeline of
Yeah.
my
You were like
journal.
on brand the whole time.
Yeah, just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So you run the Inspiring Journals Instagram as well. Was that one that came about before your personal one, or was that something you kind of, veered off on to?
No, that was a bit later. So I started just sharing like my own journals, sort of like in uni a little bit, and then I kind of needed a place to like spam all of these journals that I really liked and they were like inspiring. I don't think we had like saved collections on Instagram then, do you know what I mean? So I
don't think so.
started like sharing them. I actually got the account off someone else. We did like a trade, so I did have a bit of a cheat because I think it started with like a few thousand followers or something, so it's grown a lot. It was like a nice place to just start sharing with everyone, but I didn't expect it to grow like it did. So I feel like people don't realize that it's just me running that. Like just me going, oh, I like that, I'll just put that on. People think that it's like some company or something. So.
Do you get like submissions and stuff for it? Do you get people contacting you and saying, can you post mine?
Yeah, it's always like 99 plus message requests, which does make me a bit angry because I can't reply to everyone, but I try. So
fair enough.
That. But it's kind of like you don't want to insult people because journaling's so subjective, and I guess there's a kind of style to the ones that I share on that account. I don't mean to, but it's like your personal preference. So like I don't want to leave people out, but I also don't want to share everyone's and be like this churning out machine, like replying to all the messages, like posting them all. Do you know what I mean? It's strike, but it's fun.
Yeah. I love that account. I'm one of these journalists who likes the busyness, so I love it.
Yeah, like more is more. I just love filling up the page. When people have loads on the page, I'm like, yes, get that on there.
How did you find your like journaling style then? Because I know you replicate like what you said you like in your actual journal as well. Yeah. Like, have you always journaled like that, or was it kind of more of a journey?
No, I don't think so. I feel like maybe it's like a process that most people go through with all kinds of art. I feel like you just start off kind of almost mimicking just artists that you like and like things that you've seen. I know I was very much like, I just used to see how people did like a big quote and put some stuff around it and think, oh, that looks good, like I'll just try it out. And then I think just from like sheer volume of like journaling so much and journaling so often, it's sort of morphed. It must have gradually hit a point where I'm like, oh, I've got a style now, but I didn't notice. Do you know what I mean? It was nice and natural. And I started to care a lot less about what it looked like and just enjoyed the process a lot more, which I think helped. That's kind of my style now. Just like, don't think about what it looks like and just keep going and just enjoy sticking everything down. That's basically my process.
So with all the elements of your business, because I know you've got like your Etsy, all your journal stuff, your Patreon, the list goes on. I'm in awe of how many things you do. How do you balance all that? How do you manage all that alongside your publishing stuff as well?
That's the main challenge. Like I was thinking today, I wonder if you'll ask, like those questions like, what's your main challenge about running a business? And I'm thinking it's that, like, because there's so many different projects, they all have different deadlines, they all come in like different seasons and stuff. It's kind of like no day is the same, so it's really hard to make a routine. Like I don't know well, Daisy, I've seen some of the stuff that you do to organize your Patreon. Like you're like, in my eyes, you're an organization queen. You have like stages and you know what's coming up.
I mean that's like it, I suppose that's how it looks on the outside, but I've just had July off because I didn't have any artwork ready for July. Because I got so overwhelmed and everything, because I was doing shop stuff as well. My time was just eaten up with doing stuff for the shop that I didn't have time to do Patreon stuff. So I was like, we'll pause for July, have a little rethink, see what we can do.
Do that, because I feel like, especially with creative work, you can't, I'm going to create 9 till 5 and then do it again the next day. Like it comes in, like you have to go with the flow a bit. So sometimes you can't like force it. So I get that. I've had to like have times where I'm like, right, I just need to force myself to stop to then be able to create again. But to try and answer your question, kind of, I guess I do like genuinely take each day and each week as it comes and prioritize like what I've got coming up. Like I really try to plan into the future, but it's too hard. So I am a bit of a mess, but it all kind of seems to work out most of the time. So I'm hoping that I'll just get better with the experience.
And do you find it challenging balancing all that with just making time to create for yourself as well, like with your journals?
Yeah, definitely. Especially because like if you just want to sit down and journal, like you'll probably, both of you, I guess, will feel the same. You think, oh, maybe I should like film this for like a process, or like, oh, I wonder if I should have this as like, I don't know, especially because now some of the Patreon things I do, like the parts of the journal spreads that I make can be like downloaded, and we do little collabs, and I'm thinking, oh, should I use this one for that? Or like it's really hard to not like use the work for a purpose, like to create not for work is hard now, so I have to try to like force myself, like this journal spread is for me and no one else, and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I totally get that. So what inspired you then to create your Etsy shop with all your like journal kits and stickers and things like that? Was it kind of out of a want to have that stuff to use in your own journal?
Yeah, the Etsy shop actually started with me making like little handmade journals. Once I learned how to make them, which they weren't like the best at the start. Now I've like looking back, I've learned a lot on how to like make them better, but at the start they were kind of simple little handmade journals, and I enjoyed making them and basically made too many and was like, this would be nice, I could open a shop, I could share these with people. And then from opening that, I started to have ideas of like, I would find little things that I like to put in my journal anyway, and I started to think about how they could be stickers that I share with other people. Like it's basically my too much gene, like having an overflowing amount of supplies and like creating too many things just led to me deciding to open up the shop and see if I can share it with people. But I did find, I don't know what you think about Etsy, I do find it's quite a lot harder than people think. Like it was a really slow start, and I think a lot of people now, they think that they'll open an Etsy shop and then it's like bam, straight away it's like, I'm a small business, I'm selling all these things. But it was really slow for me to begin with, so it's only really the past year that it's become like a viable part of how I make income.
Do you use mainly kind of like your Instagram to promote that?
Yeah, which is tough because you have to have like a balance, especially people follow you for journaling, and you don't want to be like always advertising what you're selling all the time, but at the same time that is part of me, and I like making stickers, I like sharing them. So if people don't want to see that, I don't know, I don't want to scare them away, but I also don't want to not share all of these things I'm making. Like, do you find that as well, that sometimes you feel like you might be oversharing, but actually people don't know it exists if you don't keep posting, so you kind of have to?
I was going to say to you that I feel like your Instagram account has gone through that transition thing the same way mine has, where it started off kind of as a journaling place for me to share what I was doing, and then obviously off the back of that I've opened a shop, and now it's like a mixture of both, where it's shop stuff but also stuff I've created, but then it's stuff I've created with my stuff, and it's like I don't want to come across like I'm just selling stuff all the time, but also I'm excited. I'm excited to share the things that I've spent hours on creating. So I'm guessing you've probably got a similar
exactly the same, like because they are part, you were originally sharing your creative process, and then those things that you're selling, they are part of your creative process, and so it does make sense to share them there. But it's kind of like it's almost like a taboo, like how much can I share it with people before they're like, oh, stop selling me things. But it's like making stickers, and then I use my own stickers a lot in my journal, so then I share my journal, I'm like, I'm going to tag more of my own stickers here. I didn't make this to be an advert, but it kind of became one because I just use my own stickers all the time. So it has definitely turned into that. But hopefully from the outside looking in, that's a nice thing to see, and it's not too much.
I was going to say that's good, because it would be a bit worrying if you were like creating a load of stuff and then you didn't want to use it in your own journals. Like I think it's more genuine if you're like excited to use it yourself.
Yeah, and that's like first, I have to, if I'm going to put a sticker sheet on the shop, it has to be something that I would want to use myself, otherwise it just doesn't make sense.
Do you ever get people requesting sticker, like certain sticker sheets or like a certain theme or certain things like that, or do you mainly go off of what you want to create?
I guess occasionally it's happened, especially like my patrons sometimes will talk about what kind of themes they'd want to see, but it does happen quite randomly. Like I'll just feel a sort of theme or aesthetic normally and just think, oh, that would make a good sticker sheet. So it kind of happens like spontaneously. It's not I think that taking requests would be really nice, but again, that's probably something that I would have to be a lot more of an organized person to do.
What inspires you for those then?
That's the question, isn't it? It's honestly like such random stuff that will like pop up into my life, and I'll be like, oh, I'm really enjoying this at the moment. Like I'll go through a stage of like I want to make like vintage style things, because that's kind of the journals I've been seeing. That's like where my head's at. I had like my boyfriend's mum bought me some roses from her garden, and I just thought they were so nice that I started drawing roses. She will never stop going on about it, that she brought me some roses, and literally within like 3 days I had a rose sticker sheet on my Etsy, because I just really like them, and that just came about like that. So she's really pleased that she like contributed that. They come from random places. I'm trying to think of some more examples. What inspires you? Come on, because that is a hard question, isn't it? Especially like random creative stuff like journaling, it just sort of appears. For me anyway.
What, Daisy, as the shop owner, because you're creating collections all the time, aren't you?
I mean, when I go like thinking back on the last few collections that I've done, I'm currently doing a fox themed one for September, which was inspired by a collection I did before, which was kind of like generic autumn things. It just had a fox, and then loads of people liked the fox, so I was like, okay, I'll do one specifically on the fox.
Well, that's cute. You're developing your own characters.
Yeah.
Do a book next.
Yeah, and then there's the one before that. It was kind of based around a color scheme that I'd seen someone post. They had, those like LED lights that everyone has on like gamer setup situations, and they're all like, you can change the colors and stuff. Someone had shared their gaming setup, and it had these lights with this color scheme, and I screenshotted it from their story and just kind of saved it, and from that I then kind of developed it into a collection. And I think colors definitely that's my main go-to for inspiration for the Patreon collections. So yeah.
No, I guess like the Patreon collections is a good way to like categorize your inspirations, isn't it? Especially because you choose like a theme for that specific month.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I've got like a notepad with just general words, theme ideas, things that people might have mentioned, and it's just like a mess. But sometimes I look at that and I'm like, oh, we'll just grab that from there and just see what I can do with that.
I have a similar thing, like a really sort of messy, like scrawled out notes at random times of the day where I'm like, oh yeah, I'll come back to that. It sometimes takes me a while to come back to it, but when I do, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember I wrote that down now it's an actual like thing that's out there in the universe.
So I'd love to know, because I don't actually do like collections like you guys do. What kind of goes into the process behind that? Do you have like a mood board and then create some artwork off that? Like what happens for your process with that?
Like some of the collections I start with are kind of, when I say mood board, usually it's like a random few journal spreads that like I make really quickly and just get loads of stuff onto the page to like get all my ideas in there. But then sometimes it will start with an idea for like one specific sticker sheet, and then I'll build out from that. So it's never really the same process for each collection. I don't know about you, Daisy, but you probably have a process.
I mean, I have a process as far as I know that for Patreon, I have the collage sheets, and that's like the main thing that I have to create each month. And then I create the postcards and stuff using that artwork. So as long as I've got like those 3 sheets for Patreon done, I know that I can get the rest of it like done gradually throughout the month. So it's kind of, that's my goal, is to get those done, and then everything else is kind of like falls into place eventually.
That's nice. I think it'd be nice for me to get to a place with that, because like I haven't really been on Patreon for that long, but because like I said, like the inspiration comes from such random places, I don't know if I can hold myself to doing it in the same way each time. it just might not be possible, but I just like to sort of take it as it comes and just do whatever I feel like. That's kind of the nice thing about having this kind of job, isn't it, that you can just have the freedom to do what you like,
changing up as much as you want. Yeah,
That was a really great
Definitely.
segue into my next question, because I was going to ask what you enjoy most about working for yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it was a great segue. Yeah, the freedom of being able to do what I like, basically. Not in like, oh, I do whatever I want, but like I I feel like being a full-time creative, you think like, oh, you can have like loads of time off or whatever. I definitely work loads harder now, like more often, so many hours, like so much more than a 9 to 5. But the difference is that I just genuinely enjoy what I'm doing, like most of the time. It's just a really nice feeling to be able to sit down and be like, I'm going to really enjoy the work that I've got coming up today. And yeah, the other thing I really like as well that I wanted to mention is the thing of like creating something from nothing. I find it so satisfying to think of all the things that I've made or sold or like projects that I've done and think this was like just a little idea and now it's like an actual physical thing that's like I've turned something into a reality. That's my favorite, like just seeing something like come to fruition. I really love that about it.
Is there something like a product or something that you still want to make for the shop? Have you got anything?
I've got a long list. Where do you want to start? There's always more. Always more. I guess the first one that's always like on my mind is going back to doing another collection of handmade journals, like because that's kind of what I started with, and I feel like I've learned so much more about how to make them now and like have a load of ideas for how I want them to look and feel. But they are such a time-consuming thing, so I'm kind of, for the past however many months, I'm like, oh yeah, and when I've done that, I'll start my handmade journal collection, and then when I'm done that, then I'll start. Oh no, when I've done that, then I'll start. It's like this never-ending thing of like, when will I make these journals? So I will eventually be able to do those, and I'm really excited about that. But there is like a long list of other things that I'd like to make. Is there with you?
I was about to say that's a mood.
Yeah.
That is very much a mood. Yeah, it's whether it's time and money at the end of the day. Of like, I've got all these ideas and there's things that I want to make and there's things I want to make more than other things, but it's making sure that I'm spending the time productively, because at the end of the day, this is my job and I can't just spend weeks on a product that I think may or may not sell or something, because there is the money aspect of making sure I'm investing my money in the right areas at the right time and all of that stuff. So juggling those things.
You do have to be like business minded, don't you? I guess I'm kind of perpetuating this thing people who have their small business talk about, like I've just said, like, oh, I really enjoy my work and it's like doing what you want every day, but it is still work, and you do have to like make sure that it's like you're making sense with what you're doing, and you know it's still a job, and you've got to like balance these things out. You can't just make whatever you feel like all the time and then not actually think about, you know, how it's going to sell. And I do have to organize a little bit. I feel like I'm coming across as like a fairyland of like, I'll just do whatever and I'm not organized at all. But yeah, you have to put some sort of business savvy into it if you can.
Yeah.
And you have to, I think there's like a kind of, I don't know if I'm just going off on a random tangent now, so
go ahead. Go ahead.
Like a lot of managing you have to do with your mindset as well, like especially if you have that like long list of ideas and then you feel like, when am I going to get time to like get on to doing this? I'm really trying at the moment, it's like a big thing for me to see that as like a really big positive. My list will never be complete, hopefully, because hopefully I will always continue to like be inspired and have more ideas, and like I'm trying to see that as like a nice full life thing, like, oh, this can keep going on, I'll keep having more ideas, instead of seeing it as an anxious thing of like, I still haven't done that, or like, this list is so long, when am I going to get time to do that? Because I think it's so much pressure to like do it all now, that like I'm trying to, I don't know, I think things are just nicer if you go into it with like, this is a good thing, it's good that I've got these unfinished ideas, because it means that there's like a path forward. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Do you ever get creative block with any of the shop stuff or your personal journaling?
I feel like everyone does, right? Because you can't be like on all the time. Yeah, I do. Probably not that often, because like I just like making things so much that like even if it's something like rubbish, I'll just still be plowing on with it. But I do have times where I'm like, right, I need to, my brain's just like, nope, like it's not, we're not doing anything now, this is not working, you're just gonna have to like wait it out. Because you get to a point, don't you, where you can't force it.
Do you ever find that if you get a creative block with like your like personal journaling, you'll find yourself jumping into like shop stuff because you maybe don't have as much of a creative block with that side of things? Like, do you enjoy having that like options with the job? And
Oh, definitely, yeah. The good thing about having so many different like little things going on is if one thing feels really hard and I'm like procrastinating it, I'm usually procrastinating it by being productive doing something else. It's like not the actual main priority, but like I'm probably getting something elsewhere, if you know what I mean. So that kind of works my favor. But there are sometimes those creative blocks where like that's it, like everything is stopped and you just think, what am I going to do now? You just have to kind of recoup your energy, don't you? I guess, is that kind of what you felt through not doing Patreon in July? Like you've had to have a bit of time to just...
yeah, it's kind of been, July was meant to be taking a break and focusing on like getting the Patreon stuff for August sorted without having to worry about July.
I like the air quotes around taking a break.
Yeah,
not take a break.
I don't think I've actually had like a break in years, like a solid amount of time like off from work, because I'm just constantly like, ooh, maybe I should do this. And obviously posting on social media is a job in itself.
Yeah.
Like there's obviously scheduling things and stuff, but it's trying to juggle that and making sure.
It's really like the death of trying to like stop and relax, because you can't really take time off from it, can you? You can schedule things and stuff, but I'm not obviously that good at scheduling. But like, that's really, and I feel like I've been quite lucky up until this point. People saying like, oh, if you don't post, you'd like the algorithm's going to hate you or all of this stuff, and I was like, it seems to be going like okay, even though I'm not posting that often. And then famous last words, I feel like recently it's just gone right off the deep end. But it's so hard to keep up with it, isn't it? It's so
summer months are in general, things dip with like business and stuff like that, because obviously people are out more, and especially now COVID stuff's lifting. Yeah, like things are definitely gonna, like, it goes in waves for sure, but summer in general, small businesses do have a dip in sales and views and stuff like that. So that's me trying to reassure myself as well.
No, but it's true, like people are going out and about more now. That's why my like latest stuff is kind of travel themed, because I'm like, oh yeah, I'd like travel and going out into the world exists, like I'd forgotten, and that's kind of inspired me to make stuff about that.
Do you have any advice for someone who's maybe looking to sort of get into this field, start their own creative business?
Yeah, I guess I feel like you have to really decide on your reasons for it, and like make sure that you're doing it for you, because it is like a labor of love. Obviously, like there's a lot of things that you have to do that like you won't want to do if you're not truly like passionate about like creating and like doing it for your own enjoyment first and foremost. There's the business side, you want it to grow, but like if you're just focused on that from the very beginning, I think, I don't know, you'll be missing that like spark. Am I making sense, or do I sound too crazy? I just think that you need to like sit down and think like, what am I doing this for? How do I want to feel from like creating this? Like, because if you're just chasing like numbers and stuff, like numbers are infinite, you'll never be happy. You need to like decide what you want to get out of it and have a lot of patience. Like it takes a lot of time, and and taking time is fine if you're enjoying what you're doing, basically. So it's not so hard to be patient if it's something that you're enjoying each step along the way.
That's great. I feel like I'm getting like a pep talk from you.
Really?
Yeah, you're saying great things. I love it.
These are the kind of things I'm writing to myself in my journal, and like, and remember, it's not about followers or like sales. It's like, how do you feel? Like how do you want to feel? And then if you feel that already, then like from making stuff, then it's obviously working. You're going in the right direction.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us today. If people want to follow you, where can they find you?
So the main place to find me is kia.creates on Instagram or Kia Creates on TikTok. And then for like the journal community, like where I share other people's journals, that's Inspiring Journals. I don't want to list out too many websites, but I'm Kia Makes on Etsy and Kia Creates on Patreon. And I won't mention my website because that's on my long list of things to get done.
Thank you so much for listening to the Crafternoon podcast.
If you've got any questions or want to let us know what you thought of the episode, you can find and follow us over on Instagram and YouTube at My Green Cow and at Meg Journals.